Big Muddy Mayhem, the podcast where we talk about true crime and bad behavior in the Midwest.
Each week, we'll bring you 2 stories from the heartland that might break your heart, but we hope that we're going to entertain you along the way.
I'm Janet O'Brien.
I'm Tracey Laricha.
Hello!
Hello, Janet. How are you?
Good.
Good.
We're
fantastic.
A couple of days away from having a holiday.
We are. We're very close to the 4th of July holiday.
Yeah, I've already seen one batch of fireworks already.
Oh, have you? That's wonderful. Did you go to the JB ones?
Yes.
Oh, I've heard that. That's really nice. We would have, but Ryder and I just got back from 3 days on the Big Piney.
Nice.
And so, as you can imagine, like, there are 3 stages to a float trip. There's the panic packing.
Uh-huh.
There's the time on the river, which
Right.
can have its own challenges.
Right.
And then there's the, as you can tell, time back.
Right.
Janet is sitting in my living room today, and we are still, like, most of these are mostly unpacked, but all of these bins and bags are like, oh gosh, you got to get everything cleaned up and
that's okay.
take care of it. So, but we're here with you now.
Yes, exactly.
And we're ready to get muddy.
Yeah, I'm on my part 2.
Janet, I've been chomping at the bit for a week to hear the rest of this story. Guys, this is part 2 of a 2-parter.
Yeah, the Tylenol Murders.
Indeed. So if you haven't heard the rest of this,
you need to
then go back 1 episode and listen to part 1.
Exactly.
And
so my part 2 is not super long.
It's okay.
That's okay. You know.
You know what? My story, I found more than I thought I was going
Sweet.
to. So
we always seem to work
in
sync that way.
We always balance out. It always does.
It always works out.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to start with part 2 of the Tylenol Murders. Mm-hmm. So just to recap, 7 people were murdered by somebody that we don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, basically within about a 24-hour span, 7 people died. The 7th person they didn't find until 2 days later. But
right.
But
the common denominator is the
7.
same.
Exactly. And there could have been an 8th, as we know, because that one woman, you know, her sister thankfully saved her by offering her something else to take rather than the extra strength Tylenol that was already in her purse.
Right, like, oh, why don't you just have this?
Yes.
And it was like an ibuprofen or something, or an aspirin that...
Right.
Sorry, guys, for any interruption. We always ruin, like, we lock away the bad pets, but this time it's just Cecil.
It's just Cecil. So they were like, okay, the cops at this point have trimmed it down to where, like, okay, well, it's not from the supply chain, it's not coming from a factory, it's probably, we already know that for a fact that what is being put in the Tylenol that's killing people, if they don't take it right away, those pills will disintegrate. So
they've got to catch it quick.
Well, I mean, they know that, so they're like, well, clearly this was done within a day. You know, that is their scope.
Fair. It's not like, oh, okay, it took...
Yeah, it all was done in a day. They're going to figure this out pretty fast that, you know, nobody else is going to... They're going to open the Tylenol.
It's not a cumulative thing where, like, you're slowly being poisoned.
Right.
Which is how you ought to do it. I'm sorry. Wait. Janet, is this admissible? Shit.
So we know Johnson & Johnson, they are the manufacturer of Tylenol. Mm-hmm. The way they handled it, the way they handled this is taught in colleges and PR classes.
No way. Okay.
So the way the way Johnson & Johnson handled the whole thing, they're like, okay, what we're going to do is, well, first of all, the mayor of Chicago, we already know that she went out and said, okay, we're recalling it. And Johnson & Johnson's like, wait, what? We're recalling? And they're like, okay, fine, we're recalling. And so they recalled the Tylenol in Chicago immediately, but they're like, maybe we should recall everything else. Within a week, extra strength Tylenol throughout the United States is recalled. Mm-hmm. $1 million worth of stock.
So this is big money.
Right.
every single day that goes by, this is
Right. This is 1982 money.
enough to get their kind of attention.
Right. So $1 million worth of their stock has been recalled, which equals 31 million bottles of extra strength Tylenol.
Oh my gosh. Today they'd just let you take it.
They're like,
it's a gamble.
And the way they handled this, like within a year, they were back on track. Like, yeah, they lost money, but they were like, they got most of their customers back within a year, which is amazing, you know? They did set up a hotline to catch the murderer. And they had, basically, they were offering a reward of $100,000 to catch the murderer. Mm-hmm. At this point, there's no tamper-proofing at all on these pills. So this is where we start with the tamper-proof.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot for that.
Basically, I mean, we already know they have the cotton in there. That was more of an aspirin thing. But now you have that aluminum seal or plastic seal that goes over the top, and then you put the lid on, and then you have another second seal on top of that.
The foil on top.
Right. Yeah. So you have two different
things
seals
to keep you between poison and your headache.
Because before you just pop the lid open and you could close it. Nobody would care, The hard tablets for Bear, they ended up using the cotton just so it wouldn't get crushed, and so that's the whole reason why the cotton is in there. The cotton was never put in there for tamper-proofing.
Right, and that's what you said. It's put in there to squick me the hell out.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly.
Ooh, like I said, I have to use tweezers to pull that shit out or get someone else to do it because the touch of it is like...
Now, the quickness on how they tamper-proof this, they're pretty sure, the media was pretty sure that Johnson & Johnson already had this idea in place. They just hadn't put it up yet. So within 6 weeks, the boxes were glued shut, the plastic seal on the outside of the cap, the foil on the inside when it was removed. Like, they had this implemented within 6 weeks of this happening.
Imagine that kind of response to a major health scare today.
What? I know!
Look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think the pandemic's complete? Please don't sue us, Disney. We're girls that don't have anything.
She's definitely not Ariel singing about a fork. True. Not at all.
Absolutely not, no. The only thing we have in common was an overbearing father.
Oh my God.
But go on. Go on.
Go on. And also, this is back in the day when there were still like legit capsules. And they really wanted to move away from because capsules you can just open.
Right, and then you could put them in anything.
Right, and they're like, no, we want the caplet. It's like that gel caplet.
So it's the same thing, but it's sealed
It's sealed. Exactly.
It's not like contact. Little different yellow better.
Exactly.
Little different yellow drug her.
So they introduced the caplet with an easy swallow gelatin that surrounds it. Within a year, Johnson & Johnson basically won back, as I said, all their consumers. The CEO of Johnson & Johnson came out on TV explaining that they definitely care about their customers. And they're like, okay, we are going to make sure that this is a thing. Now, back in 1982, when all the poisonings happened, Congress had not made it a federal offense for people to just poison pills and people take them. So by 1993, Congress passed it saying that it is now a federal offense if you go around trying to poison people.
Was it a crime before? It was just a misdemeanor, but now it's carrying more weight?
Basically it's a federal offense. So it's
not just
now
state. It is, yes. Yeah. But before, do you know?
It just I guess whatever, it happened in Chicago, so it stays under Chicago.
Okay.
Now it's a federal.
And they have a law called Who Would Do Such a Thing?
Right. In 1989, the FDA finally established tamper-proof, period. Even though most companies have already taken
taken
They're
some
like,
steps.
we're just going to go ahead and do that because, yeah. But the FDA finally establishes this. Tamper-proof was introduced to basically everything. So,
Okay.
That's why you have 8 million pieces of plastic on everything.
All right.
Right?
Well,
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
You just have to open that. Oh, sorry, yawn. Hi, everybody, yawn with me. Ah. No, you just have to, now when you buy that stuff, you just have to,
You just have to do
open it and get it ready to go before you need it.
Exactly. They did come up with a psychological profile on the person that possibly did this. They said basically they think the person who was doing it was almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of character.
Okay.
Like, probably went to the office every day. It was totally normal. And then, at some point they're like, I'm going to do this really terrible thing. When they started as we know, they started that task force that I mentioned last week. They started with 140 suspects. They had so many calls. So they had 140 suspects. 1,200 tips were checked out. Then, and then the tips got down to about 400. Then the suspects went from 40 people. Then it went down by the end of the year because, this happened in September. So by December, they're down to 20 suspects. They were like, okay. And back, in 1982, it was way easier to get away with stuff. You don't have cameras everywhere.
Completely.
You just don't.
And the people that are calling in, there are a handful that you can just be like, oh, yeah, you're mad at your ex-boyfriend or whatever, and you're just kind of trying to this, that, and the other. But so they narrow it down.
So they narrow it down. They could not find. They were having a really rough time trying to find a motive. The cops, within the first month of this, they were like, I don't think we're ever going to catch this guy. How? How are we going to catch them?
Right. Because it's so widespread that you're like, even if you're trying to target one individual person, how can you possibly know where they're going to be?
Exactly.
What they're going to do.
Just messed up. Okay, so let me start with suspect number 1.
Okay.
We get down to 2 suspects.
All right.
So let's start off with Roger Arnold. He's 49 years old. He's a DIY chemist. He is a dockhand at Jewel Foods in Chicago.
So he has
access. Exactly.
He's got means.
Right.
He's got opportunity.
Right. So he's a DIY chemist and he happens to work at one of these grocery stores.
So he has means and opportunity, basically, but his motive.
So they do find a book at his house. The name of the book is How to Kill People. He also has 5 unregistered guns, and he has admitted to having cyanide in his house.
All right, so a little bit more other than I bought a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook.
Right, exactly.
Right, there's some there.
Now, he said that when he bought the cyanide, he had actually thrown it away 6 months ago. And then
so he just bought it for no reason, to have?
I mean, he's a DIY chemist. Who knows? Who knows why he bought it? His wife, when they interviewed his wife was like, well, yeah, there was one time I did take some extra strength Tylenol and I got really sick, but I think that was just due to me overeating one night.
She might have put the cyanide in the Christmas cookies thinking it was almond extract.
6 months, but here's the thing. So they end up clearing him because they're like,
right.
They can't really find a motive other than he has access and
other than you would be the most obvious person if it weren't for the fact that you're not our guy.
Right. So 6 months after being cleared from it, Roger Arnold, he was arrested for murdering someone.
So he could be our guy.
John Stanisha, 46-year-old. He basically, what happened is that this Roger Arnold was going to a bar. And the bartender, the bar owner of this bar that he would go to, overheard him talking or something, and Roger swore, he's like, that bar owner told on me. He's the one, that's why all these, the cops are coming after me. I didn't do it. But it was, this bar, basically, he believes this bar owner ruined his life.
Don't ever think the bartender doesn't hear you. Don't ever think that the bartender doesn't hear you.
So he goes to this bar, and he sees this guy, and he assumes he's the bar owner, because he looks like the bar owner, and he kills him, basically shooting him point blank. Guess what? He wasn't the bar owner. So he killed some random guy who was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I'm just like, I was just watching that shooting for 3 minutes. He said he was just going out back for a smoke.
Yeah.
So do we know who this guy was?
Yeah, just Roger Arnold. Like the information.
But we don't know why he was there to be mistaken for the bartender.
Just, I guess they just went through the list of people, possible suspects, and because he was a DIY chemist.
Okay, so it wasn't actually in the bar. It was just like
he killed the bar guy in the bar.
In the bar, okay.
But it wasn't the bar owner. He killed a random guy, thinking he was the bar owner.
He's like, I'm not even supposed to be here today.
So basically, this poor John Stanishaw was a mistaken identity, and he was considered the 8th victim of the Tylenol murders.
Oh dear!
Even though, it probably wasn't the Tylenol murderer who killed him, and it, basically Roger was like,
just something else.
Yeah, Roger's like, you ruined my life. I'll go kill him. It was totally in the bar when it happened, and. Roger ended up serving 15 years prison for killing the random, and 9 years after he got out of jail, he died.
Oh wow!
So just crazy. So we were pretty
long enough that we know it was
not now, but yeah, he ended up killing someone because he was a suspect, and it basically messed him up, and he killed someone. Oh, now we go to suspect number 2.
Okay.
James Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
James Lewis, he sent a letter to Johnson & Johnson stating that he was the murderer. And he was like, okay, I am the murderer, and we want... What am I getting at? He's like, I'm the murderer, and I want to extort money from Johnson & Johnson.
Okay, right. I was going to say that tracks. But,
so, yeah,
But also, why come right out and, then you're going to have to provide proof?
Right.
Could he?
Yeah, I don't know. So, he's like, I spent $50 so far, and I've taken 10 minutes per bottle, and I've killed 7 people. But I basically see no reason to stop now.
This sounds so braggy.
I know.
This is it's giving narcissist.
Yes. He's like, pay me $1 million and I'll stop.
Right. It's giving somebody who wants to be grander than they maybe actually are.
Right. So the New York Postmark, they look and they find out that the bank account. They're like, oh, he gave us a bank account? And so they go to the travel agency.
Okay.
And then the travel agency, the owner of the travel agency is like, wait a minute. I think I know who it is.
Oh, dear.
And he's like, there's this Robert Richardson that's been a jerk, because I know this guy because his wife, Nancy Richardson, used to work for me.
So wait, it's Robert Richardson, and what's the name of
Nancy.
The first guy?
Okay, so the
first guy is
James Lewis. Basically, what it is.
James Lewis and
Robert Richardson are the same person.
Oh, okay. Well, I was like, they say never trust a man with 2 first names, right. And they both are kind of there.
Yeah. So basically, this Robert Richardson, he was the husband of Nancy Richardson, who worked for this travel agency. And Nancy, the travel agency basically went belly up, and Nancy was like, she didn't get her last paycheck, and so her husband got all furious about it and was like, I'm gonna frame the owner of the travel agency that got shut down because he ran, he went belly up. He owes us. And so the cops start to look into that, and they're like, there is no Robert Richardson. But there's definitely a James Lewis.
Oh my gosh.
So they're like, okay. And they're like, what is going on here? That's interesting.
Also, come up with a more interesting nom de plume.
I know.
Nom de murder than than Robert Richardson. That's like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be microphonia candlestick if I look around.
Exactly. So the cops figure this out, and they're like, okay, you're actually James Lewis, that's fine. And then they start looking into things that this James Lewis guy has done. He has done credit card fraud in Kansas City. 1978, he was indicted for a murder, but because there was some client he had, and they found parts of his body in his attic.
Oh, wow.
That got thrown out because it was an illegal search.
I was about to ask Janet, why isn't this the story? Like,
I don't know.
You're burying the lead. He's burying bodies in his attic. What the heck? How is this?
So they moved to Chicago to get away from Kansas City, and because
Who amongst us?
And then he ends up becoming a tax preparer, but then he gets fired from that job because he has a temper. He has a violent outburst against his coworkers.
Really?
Yeah, and then him and his wife end up moving to New York. Now the cops are like, okay, well, he was in New York when that happened, so he couldn't have possibly done it. Well, he could have. He could have flown back. You know, again, this is 1982.
Right.
We're not paying attention to everything.
Real quick.
Right. So the task force is like, well, he probably didn't do it because he's in, New York. And so they end up basically getting him sentenced for 10 years for extortion because he wrote that letter from Johnson and Johnson. He gets another 10 years for credit card fraud. He only serves 13 years, and then he ends up moving to Boston. And the detectives are like, there's something not right with that guy. We
Real quick thing about like short flights like that. There was one time when I was a kid that my parents, we used to sometimes, because I have one sister who's like almost 3 years younger than me, they would do things where we would go on like mommy and so dates and daddy and so, like where one of us would go out with our mother and one of us would go out with our father.
Right.
There was one time where my dad, because my sister had never been on an airplane, decided that we were just gonna, she was gonna fly with him from St. Louis to Chicago. And they flew up to Chicago and they had lunch. And then they got back on a plane. This is when you could just walk into an airport and buy a ticket. Well, it was Dad's day with my sister and Mom's day with me. And Mom and I went shopping. And my dad flew my sister to Chicago. They had lunch and they flew back. And they were back before my mom and I were from Northwest Plaza.
That's hilarious. Oh my God.
Anywho. So it's easy to get out in and out back then.
Exactly. So 2009, the FBI, they do some DNA samples to see if maybe he did it. They didn't get anything on that. Scott Winkleman on the task force, he still was like, you know what? I still believe he did it. I still believe to do it. And now we have an update from 2023.
Update! Janet, take it away.
This Lewis guy, he passes away in 2023 at the age of 76.
Was it Tylenol?
In 2007, the FBI did record an interview while he was in a Chicago hotel where he revealed details of the case that were not known to the public at the time. And then, lastly, the reason why they still believe to this day that he did it, even though they're never ever going to prove it, when his 5-year-old ended up dying.
Oh no.
Because of a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson produced these seizures that basically helped fix a heart defect that his daughter had. And they tore and she died.
Oh, no.
And so they believe that he was just doing it in retaliation against
Like
Johnson and
we
Johnson.
put out bandages and this didn't help. And,
Right.
And so oh gosh. So we have the means, we have the opportunity, and now we have the motive.
Exactly.
So we understand why. Screw you, you took from my family. I'm going to take from yours.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that is how it ends.
We
will never be able to solve it, but it's very likely he was the guy.
I mean, other than somebody that's just kind of like out there for no reason with a chaos maniac kind of, thing. No, that makes sense. This is the malicious act of a grieving parent.
Right, exactly.
Oh, gosh.
So,
wow.
So that's my story.
I had no idea. I've heard of the Tylenol Murders, but I had never heard the update. So
yeah,
it is
that was just happened last year.
Wow. Wow.
So that's my story.
Fantastic. Yikes.
You got a story for me?
I do. Hang on one second.
Okay.
Let me pull my notes together here. And, like I said, I don't have photos. There's only one that I want to find you. So
okay.
If you vamp for 2 seconds,
okay.
I'm gonna find it.
I am vamping away.
Da 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 da.
Woo! Just so crazy.
I know. It's wild. Wow. I can't. Yeah. So, I guess I found the picture I needed.
Okay.
I was gonna say, so they found the guy. It's just that
they're not
not too late. It's a little bit too late for any kind of justice to be served, but at least those families have some answers. Like, okay, this happened.
Possibly.
But we're pretty
highly likely.
Yeah, but we're pretty sure of it.
Right.
Okay. So, Janet, this is not a part 2, but this is kind of a companion story to the one that I told last week.
Okay.
Have you heard the story of Francis Baker?
No, I have not.
Okay. You actually have.
Okay.
But you also kind of haven't.
Okay.
You would know it a little. After our dive into Stagger Lee last week, I went down a murder ballad hole.
Oh, no.
So I listened to a whole bunch of murder ballads. And I discovered another famous song that was written about a crime that took place 4 years after the Stagger Lee killing.
Oh my God.
And just a few blocks away from where Stagger Lee shot Billy Lyons.
Oh my gosh.
Or was shot by,
right.
Anyway, or where Stagger Lee was shot by Billy. Yeah. Anyway, so the song gets a whole lot wrong. And we're going to get into that. But for now, I'm going to start with my story.
Okay.
And that is, we're going to talk about the fruit story? The true story.
The true story.
We don't have any fruit stories. We'll get into that. There's a whole bunch of weird shit with the Dole Pineapple Company. You guys look it up. But that's outside of the Midwest, so that's not our purview. Anyway, I'm going to tell you the true story of Frankie and Johnny.
Oh!
Like I said, the song gets a whole lot wrong, and there are many, many versions of the song. If you think of Frankie and Johnny, do you have a version that comes to head?
No, not really.
For me, it's the Johnny Cash one.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just about a guy who he's playing away from his girlfriend, and this sexy girl comes in and, hits on him, and he starts to kind of put it back, and it ends up being his wife's sister.
Oh no!
Who's checking up on him.
Wow.
And he's like, okay. And then he just stays true afterwards. That is not what happens here. So we don't have a whole lot of information about Frankie during her early life.
Okay.
But in 1899, Frances Baker was 23. She was really pretty.
Yes, she was.
Really pretty. Big eyes, wide cheekbones, a pretty smile. And she's living in what they call a sporting neighborhood.
Okay.
Which means to say that this is where people of color lived, but it's on the seedy side. It's the Vice District. It's kind of like, you know how in Chicago, we've talked about this on the podcast before.
Right.
They're like, all right, well, we're never going to control the drugs and the boozing and the sex and the gambling, so we might as well just make an area where we don't patrol this very highly.
Oh.
If you can't control it, contain it.
Right.
You know? And
right.
so this is what's happening in the St. Louis neighborhood. She's in a sporting neighborhood. She is very likely a sex worker. The area is known for gambling, boozing, sex. This also means crime. Frances, who is known as Frankie, lived at 212 Targhee Street.
Okay.
Along with her boyfriend. She's a 23-year-old sex worker. She is living in a sporting neighborhood with her 17-year-old piano-playing boyfriend.
Oh my gosh.
Oh God! Don't date a younger musician. I mean, our audience is way too old to be born about this. But if anybody's mama or like Nana is listening and you're listening along, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Alan was a 17-year-old playboy. He was a piano player. He was playing in gambling houses, brothels, etc. So we know he might not have been the most faithful of boyfriends.
Uh-huh.
We get the impression that he's also kind of a kept man. Frankie, whatever she was doing it for a lot of money.
Oh, wow.
She liked to make a lot of money. She liked to spend a lot of money. She was described by a neighbor as follows. She dressed very richly. She was a beautiful light brown girl, had diamonds in her ears as big as hen's eggs, and a scar down her face that she got from her teens when a girl who was jealous of her cut her.
Oh my God.
She only weighed about 115 pounds. She had the eye of one that you couldn't monkey with. She was a queen spirit.
Okay.
So, and again, I read that, and then I looked at her picture again, and I'm like, all of that is true.
Yes.
All of that is true. So, her love for Alan was really, really deep. And his love for her pockets was really deep, too.
Yeah.
So, they had a contentious relationship. He really liked the money and all of the things that she could buy him, but they were fueled by booze and jealousy, and Alan also beat her on several occasions.
Gotcha.
This will all come to a head. October 14th, 1899.
Okay.
Frankie gets word that Alan is, quote, in a slow dance contest
Okay.
at a neighboring club with a woman named Alice Pryor.
Oh, no.
And she was also widely known as a sex worker. Well, Frankie has had just about enough, so she goes down to check it out, and there they are. Like,
yeah.
you know, like just sidled up, grinding on one another. And there is a big scene, but it's mostly just yelling.
Right.
Frankie goes home alone. She's furious. You know how that is. You have that fight. You go home. You're crying. You're mad. Mm-hmm. You're a little bit like tipsy, and you're just like, freak it. And
right.
you just go to bed.
Right.
She goes home. She's like, all right, I'll deal with this in the morning. I'm going to bed now.
Right.
You know, she goes home and cries herself to sleep. Somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning, Alan comes back to the apartment as well. He's finished with Alice, for the night.
Right.
He's in a fucking mood, right? So he comes upstairs and he starts shouting at her about embarrassing him and how dare you and this, that, and the other. And he throws a lamp at her while she's in bed.
Oh my God.
And she wakes up that way. Like,
right.
I mean, you're home, you're drunk, you're sad. Your
right.
boyfriend is screwing around.
Yeah.
And you wake up when crash. Like, something is right there. So they fight, they argue. Frankie sits up and is like, all right, well, screw you. Like, I'm going to leave. And then I'm going to kick you out of here. And Alan pulls a knife
Uh-oh.
And so Alan pulls a knife on her, but Alan has made the same mistake that Stagger Lee did last week. He brought a knife to a gunfight.
Oh, no.
Frankie reaches under her pillow for the gun that she's kept there.
Right.
And she pulls it out and she shoots. She would later say, I didn't shoot it but once. I mean, you get one, right?
Right.
So Alan leaves and he runs up Tarjee Street and runs to his mom's house because his mom only lives like a couple of blocks away.
Oh my God.
His mom sees him like bleeding and screaming on the front porch, and she runs out into the street screaming, Frankie shot Alan! Frankie shot Alan! Frankie shot Alan! Alan is taken to City Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
He is gut shot. Some sources say that she shot him through the liver.
Oh, wow.
And so he is there for 4 days, and he dies 4 days later.
Oh my God. Wow.
But in the meantime, he does name Frankie as
the one who shot him.
as his killer, right?
Yeah.
And so by this time, though, there's already a song about it.
Oh my God.
They're down in these neighborhoods where there's all kinds of like juke joints and, you know, stuff happening. So a local songwriter, it's largely attributed to a guy named Bill Dooley, although we can't say for sure. Before Alan is even dead, this is on sheet music and it's being played in bars around town. And it's a song called Frankie Shot Alan. In time, over 250 variations of the song will be recorded.
Oh my gosh.
And while the original is called Frankie Killed Alan, it will be changed to Frankie and Johnny because it scans better.
Right, yep.
Also, Alice Pryor, her name will be changed to Nellie Bly.
Oh my God.
If you listen to versions of this song, like Nellie Bly is always the other woman. Which is kind of funny because Nellie Bly, I don't think she's from the Midwest, so we can't do her story. But, you know, she was also the reporter that would, like, put herself in really dangerous situations in order to be able to report on them. So the song is in the streets before Alan Britt dies. And just like Stag, one of the most popular recordings of this song is by Mississippi John Hurt.
Nice.
So on Friday the 13th of November is when her trial starts. Again, like, how did they get stuff so fast?
So fast.
Right. So Friday the 13th is when her trial starts, but she said that she doesn't think it's an unlucky day because after the trial, which is a bench trial, so no jury, the judge acquits her on self-defense. Like I said, Alan used to beat her. Frankie actually still had the vestiges of a black eye.
Oh, wow.
When she went to court.
Yeah.
And the judge acquits her, and Frankie is quoted in the paper as saying, "He even gave me back my gun."
Oh, my God. Wow. Right.
You know, so there are, as you know, tons of stories and stuff that are going around town. Bill Dooley, who wrote the original song, he doesn't have a copyright, so it's open season. But just like a game of telephone, the story changes. Like with every person that writes it and whatnot, they take artistic licenses, like songwriters, right?
Yes, always.
So it's a game of telephone every time, and Frankie isn't always perceived as innocent. There's even a Thomas Hart Benton mural, which I'll show you in the show notes. Thomas Hart Benton, who was going to become like one of the most famous American folk artists.
Oh, nice.
Writes paints a mural that is like up on a wall about the shooting of Frankie and Johnny. By 1901, things have gotten so bad for poor Frankie. She's like, I gotta get out of St. Louis. Like, she's recognized. She can't do anything, you know. So she's like, I'm hoping for some anonymity and some peace. Don't we all have that one boyfriend?
Right.
That you want to just erase?
Right.
So she goes to Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not far enough. People still know who she is. They walk up to her in the street, start singing the song.
Oh my God.
Because her picture's been in the paper, and we don't have a whole lot to look at back then. So, yeah.
People recognize her.
Completely. People learn who she is. She still can't walk the streets in peace. She goes to Portland, and there, it's kind of far enough away that she can kind of be a little invisible. She's just Frances Baker. She opens up a shoe shine store, and it does pretty well for a while, and she has like a year or two of just kind of living a normal life.
Okay, nice.
But then the Depression hits.
Oh.
And one of the things that you're going to first knock out of your budget
is shoe shining.
Right.
You don't need your,
You're lucky to have shoes.
Right.
And no one's getting their feet shined.
Right.
Except for late stage capitalism now, where we all go get pedicures. Anyway, so wipes out her business. And around then, the music starts to kind of change to movies, because you know how like film was a big thing?
Yes.
So, several movies will be made about Frankie and Johnny.
Oh my God.
In all of them, the story is changed, and the characters are all completely whitewashed.
Of course.
This isn't a story that took place in a neighborhood that was populated by people of color, but whenever they put it to stage,
it's not.
It's not. The characters are all white, and the producers of these movies made a ton of money.
Of course.
I'm only going to dip into one right now. 1933, there was a movie called She Done Him Wrong.
Okay.
Do you know this one?
I've heard of it.
It's Mae West.
Oh, okay. Yes, I have heard of it.
So Mae West originally wrote a play called Diamond Lil, and it did really well, and then they adapted it for screenplay. Mm-hmm. And she was a director and all of this. She was like a boss bitch for the play. But then when they put together the film, she was smart about what she would take and wouldn't take. I mean, Frankie would probably have approved. And the film She Done Him Wrong is a gender-flipped story based on the Frankie and Johnny love
Oh, okay.
It made so much money that it pretty much saved Paramount Pictures, which was about to go bankrupt.
Oh, wow.
This is the 30s, and this film house was about to go under, which is why they would let this lippy bleach blonde do her thing. And it saved Paramount Pictures from bankruptcy. Wow. Mae West made so much money off of this movie that she was the second highest paid person in America.
Wow.
A woman.
That's amazing.
In the 30s.
Yeah.
The second highest paid person in America.
Wow.
Behind only, I had to look it up, William Randolph Hearst was...
Oh my God!
So that she's got Hearst kind of money.
Yeah.
It's also nominated for Best Picture for some kind of an award that would be the predecessor to the Oscars.
Oh my God.
So Frankie, she's destitute at this point. She tries to sue for a little bit of money.
Sure.
Based on this story that has been chasing her for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
She tries to sue twice. The first suit is thrown out. The second, it makes it to trial, and the all-white jury says, well, you can't prove that this story is about you. Because remember, Bill Dooley didn't have any copyright.
Oh.
And this was kind of in the time of, history where people would go down to the quote-unquote sporting neighborhoods.
Right.
To get quote-unquote inspiration, and then would quote-unquote steal.
Yeah.
So she doesn't ever see a dime. In 1950... Frankie is still in Portland, and she is admitted to a psychiatric facility. She will die there in 1952. She is always completely clear on everything about happened that night with Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And also maybe a little bit unclear about everything else. It's been really rough for her. So she dies there in poverty.
Oh.
She didn't, quote unquote, do him wrong, but she was done wrong.
Right.
And the woman that didn't want to be remembered for the worst night of her life would end up dying in infamy.
Oh.
And
wow.
that is the story of Frankie Baker.
That's a good story. Ugh. Yeah.
I hear ya.
Rough. Well, I think this is where we should take a break.
I think that this is where we take a break. I am going to take Janet out back and play her a piano song and feed her some Tylenol. And we're going to be right back with What's Nice.
We'll be back for What's Nice. If you enjoy getting muddy with us, here are some ways to help support our podcast. You can give us suggestions by emailing us at bigmuddymayhem@gmail.com. If you would like to help support, you can go to Buy Me a Coffee, which is also listed in our notes. Like and subscribe to the podcast on the platform where you're listening. And of course, leave a good review, which will help us reach new listeners. And if you're listening on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment in the comments section. Make sure to join our Facebook group where we can discuss the episodes and hear your suggestions. And of course, tell your friends. And now let's get back to What's Nice.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. And now we're here for What's Nice.
We are. We're here for What's Nice here, and I think you go first.
Yes, I'm still in Chicago because I can't seem to get away from Chicago.
I
was looking up something a little bit different, and I found it is a chain, but they have one in Chicago. There's only 3 of them, and this looks pretty interesting. The Medieval Torture Museum. There's a Medieval Torture Museum in Chicago, Tracy.
I'm hooked. I'm hooked. On the wall. Get me down from here, Janet. Help me. I'm stuck at the Medieval Torture Museum in Chicago. Muddy Buddy, save me.
Oh my god, the pictures are so ridiculous on this. It's all drawn, but like...
Janet has taken so many pictures of me hooked up at the Medieval Torture Museum. What is wrong with her? Please, someone rescue me.
Oh my god. So we have, the cage that you put people in.
Oh, wow.
You have, here's a fun little cage. Let's put a little cage on top of someone and put a rat in it.
Oh no!
Oh yeah!
I've heard of that one before, where and then the rat gets hungry and just starts.
Yeah.
Oh. It's like the people that they would plant over bamboo.
Right?
Have you heard of that?
Oh yes, the bamboo growing through them, or it's a little head squishing.
Just a little. Honestly, the first 5 minutes of that would feel so good.
And then, of course, you got your wheel where you splay them out,
And stretch.
Yeah.
Again, the first 5 minutes of that would feel so good. I'm 50 and I might have just gotten off of a 3-day canoe trip and I need to be squeezed and stretched everywhere.
They also have ghost hunting experiences at this museum.
Okay.
Because you should. You really, really should. There's an audio guide. You can
It's
go...
mostly just people going, please make them stop!
Oh my god. It is the largest interactive medieval torture museum in the United States.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can we go back to the phrase interactive medieval torture museum? Because where was that when I was on family vacations?
Here, just lay there. You know what? Oh my god. It's almost like the Addams Family, Pugsley and Wednesday.
I know.
You know how they used to torture each other all the time?
The Addams Family musical, have you seen that?
Yes.
What if she doesn't torture me anymore?
Right?
Oh, gosh.
It is not recommended for children under the age of 18. Children under the age of 10 are admitted free of charge as long as they are accompanied by an adult.
And willing to be subjected to torture.
Well, you know.
You pays your money and you takes your choice.
A ticket there.
I'm sorry, guys.
So you can actually buy, so a regular ticket is about $30, but you can do a combination where you basically do the torture museum and then go on a Lincoln Park ghost hunt afterwards for $48.
Okay.
So it's a nice little combination.
What is the discount if you allow them to torture someone like that?
There is not one.
I need to call them and ask that.
Reviews say one of the best museums we've seen yet. Not for the faint of heart. Lots of horrific torture devices.
Okay.
Super fun. Anyway.
It's good for bachelorette parties because then they know what they're getting into.
Exactly. Oh my God. They occupy 6,000 square feet, and there's about 100 unique implements and devices on display.
Okay.
Enter the minds of fanatics, madmen, and murderers, and discover the world's most detailed collection of confinement and torture devices.
Oh, wow.
Are you brave enough? But yeah, so there's one of those there in Chicago.
Well, the next time that we go,
we're
definitely going back to the Italian village.
Of course.
And then maybe we'll check out the torture museum.
Correct.
For funsies.
Right.
Oh,
so you're back in St. Louis.
Nice. I am back in St. Louis, and I am starting to run out of what's nicest for St. Louis, especially the downtown area. Ooh, that was the other thing I forgot to tell you is that, so the Stagger Lee murder and the Frankie and Johnny murder, they are mere blocks away.
That's crazy.
Stagger Lee took place on what is now North, I think, or 11th Street somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then the Frankie and Johnny, the Chargy Street, where he lived and where his mom lived, where he ran down the street. Right. That is all now where the Enterprise Center sits.
Oh, crazy. Wow.
And I was like, I can't really use that.
No.
That's not
No.
And then my second thought was because this took place when a couple of people were way drunk in the middle of the night. My second choice for what's nice was going to be Maurizio's Pizza. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Listeners, Maurizio's Pizza was a place that would deliver until 3 a.m.
Yes.
And their pizza was not good.
No, it wasn't.
But it was available at 3 a.m. back when nothing else was.
I used to get drugged there every once in a while when I worked downtown to go have lunch. And I'm like, why are we going there again? But they have a buffet. And I'm like, it's not good.
It's not good. But you know what? What I liked about Maurizio's was late night.
Yeah.
You could order a pizza, and then they had all of these add-ons. It was a place that, way back in the, when we were in our 20s, you could get a pizza, and they would also bring you a 6-pack of beer. And if you wanted, they would also bring you condoms. And they would bring you cigarettes. So if you were a girl that was a wayward girl hanging out at the home of a no-good man like Johnny Master Frankie, they could bring you sustenance and protection and a beer and a smoke. It was one-stop shopping. It was everything you needed. It was Instacart 30 years before there was Instacart.
Oh, that is fantastic.
But that's not my what's nice today because it is sadly no longer there.
You said it closed a month ago or something.
I know. I saw when I looked for it. So what I went with is another place in that area that I really love.
Okay.
Which is BB's Blues, Jazz, and
Yay!
the original construction of the building was in 1899.
Yep.
So it was there around the time of Frankie and Johnny. Since 1976, it started out as a music venue run by Bob Burkhart and Mike O'Shaughnessy.
Uh-huh.
They closed for a little while, and then they reopened in 1980.
Okay.
And they have been there since. They're at 700 South Broadway. They don't have a kitchen anymore.
Right, yeah, I know.
So it used to be like you used to be able to go down there on like a Monday night and get like a bowl of soup and just listen to the blues. So they don't have a kitchen anymore, but it is still a great place to see music.
Yes.
They get a lot of really good blues and jazz acts.
Yep.
And people that come through town sometimes kind of like low-key take a date down there. It's usually between $10 to $15 each. And if you are in St. Louis and you happen to be here and you have a chance, the ambiance is amazing. Eat before you go.
Yes.
But then just go sit and have a cocktail and listen to really, really good music. And if you're lucky, and if you throw a tip in the bucket, you might get one of them to play one of the 250-odd versions of Frankie and Johnny. So that is my What's Nice.
That's awesome. Yay.
All right.
Well, I think this is where we shall end.
Janet, I think this is where we wrap it up.
Yeah.
And there is one thing.
One thing.
that we usually
say. Yes, it is. And that is...
to stay Midwest nice.
Stay Midwest nice.